World Hour. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. Thank you so much for joining us. We take you now to the latest ongoings at the International Criminal Court. It's convicted the first Janja-weed militia leader put on trial for the atrocities committed in Sudan's Darfur region more than 20 years ago. The court found Ali Muhammad Ali Abd-Al-Rahman's guilty of 27 counts of crimes against humanity and war crimes, including rape, murder, and persecution. His sentence will be determined at a later date after a new round of hearings. The conviction is the first and only trial looking at crimes in Sudan since the case was referred to the court by the United Nations Security Council in 2005. For more on this, we're joined by political analyst Professor Jok Madut Jok. A very good evening to you, Professor Jok. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Hello, very nice to be back.
I was just thinking that since at least I've been speaking to you, it's been a very long time now. It surprises me that this is the first of the successful convictions of the Janja-weed since the war 20 years ago. Do you share that sentiment?
Oh, absolutely. The issue with international legal instruments has always been the double bind that those of us who come from troubled parts of the world have always have to reckon with. On the one hand, there is this idea that international legal instruments have to become a deterrent, at least even if they are not punitive in the immediate, that they have to be there with a force and power that is feared by would-be genocidaires or would-be murderers on the one hand. But on the other, there is always this idea that even when such people like Ahmed Kusheb, which is the local name of this leader, Ali Muhammad is locally known as Ahmed al-Kusheb, and that they often, even when they are arrested, they stay in jail. They might even get convicted, but sentencing becomes another issue, and they're staying behind bars instead of being justice to their victims become a process of reliving the horrors that they have inflicted. So yes, it's not surprising, but equally disheartening that people like Ahmed al-Kusheb have to take so long to be found guilty.
So, Professor Jok, let's place him in particularly his role and what the Janja-weed did during the reign of terror in Darfur. And I'm just thinking about the fact that they became so notorious, even young people would use the name Janja-weed to scare other young people, as in that's how well known their atrocities were. But they had no real understanding, at least I'm talking about young people here in South Africa who were saying, I'm going to send the Janja-weed after you. But I mean, it's a very chilling period, and it needs to be contextualized and understood at how it's also led to what is happening now in the Sudan.
Right. Definitely. I think the war in Darfur, especially the part that started in 2003 with the various communities in Darfur feeling that now South Sudan is going to secede, the people of Darfur are going to become the next battlefield, the next massacre, the next areas for the Sudanese government to reach unhappiness with the peripheries. There was no question that Darfur very quickly replaced South Sudan when it comes to mass murder. So, and instead of the government actually doing it, with its own official armed forces, it outsourced the killing to informal militias, which were often recruited by the Sudan armed forces to do the bidding for them in the faraway places like South Sudan and Darfur or Kordofan. So the rise of Janja-weed was simply a more ghastly, more deadly manifestation, culmination of what had been a policy of Sudan dealing with insurgencies in the peripheries for a very long time, particularly since 1983. So the Janja-weed in Darfur became the more ugly showing of the Sudanese state as far as the way Khartoum deals with insurgent peripheries. And so definitely we have now come to a point of making sure that somebody gets to account for these atrocities. And unfortunately, unlike other areas of crisis like Serbia or former Yugoslavia or Ethiopia during the Derg or the Khmer Rouge or all other areas of mass murder, today all the evils of the Sudanese state have now been pinned on one man. And in that sense, even though he is found guilty, he is a far cry from being the solution to what has happened to Sudan.
And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Hmm?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to ask, it's symbolic in terms of the Janja-weed being punished, but what about the architects of the systemic human rights atrocities and, as you mentioned, indiscriminate killings which were outsourced, as you say, that still remain behind and are still at the helm? And given the fact that at some point it was just sold as a war that was about ethnic competition for resources, when the politics that also drove it, were left without being held accountable.
Right. No, I mean, yes, of course, there will always be talk about ethnic violence in Sudan. There will always be talk about tribes duking it out. But really, the biggest story and the more realistic story that is often hidden behind such linguistic is that these atrocities that happen in the peripheries are actually orchestrated by people sitting in Khartoum. So the fact that now the field commanders or well-known officers, the butchers, as they will call them, were in fact simply foot soldiers doing it for the big men sitting in the capital cities of the states of Kordofan or Al Fashir or in Khartoum itself. So the fact that Ali Koshep is now behind bars is certainly a good step in the direction, but is it really? Can anybody hold their breath and say, okay, justice has come to Sudan? No, certainly not, because the men who ordered these atrocities are today either it is a President al-Bashir himself sitting comfortably in one of the houses in Sudan being detained since the fall of the al-Bashir regime in 2019, or are in power. In fact, Al-Burhan himself, the current head of the military council, the ruling military council, or Ahmeti, the man who is now commanding the extension of the Janja-weed, what is now known as RSF. All of these were the ones who were responsible for the massacres of Darfur, and that now Kushep falls for them is both at once uh, karma for Al Kushayb, but it is also a slap in the wrist for the men who were behind the massacres.
What about the ICC itself? I mean, there have been questions. We've seen what has happened with the Sahel countries and their rationale about it. So some would argue that this is, a victory. It's a restoration of credibility of the court. But then others would say, as you mentioned, does this conviction really mark that? Because it falls very short of addressing those gross human rights violations and the actors that were behind it.
I don't even think that the people in Africa who are victims, not just in Africa, but even in Palestine as we speak today, the people who are immediate victims are not even dreaming that justice will come to them through the ICC or any other international instrument. But of course, what else have we got? What else does the world have to show a semblance of concern and effort to hold some people accountable other than the ICC? And so, of course, the ICC has done well in apprehending Ali Kushayb, but also it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of what about the others, the ones who were actually the most instrumental in the massacres and in the death of Darfur. How do we get to them? And can the ICC really bill itself as the harbinger of peace and justice while letting off the hook
And I wonder
some of the most deadly individuals?
what would people in El Fasher or Guinea say hearing this, and given the fact that we're still to hear what the final verdict is in terms of sentencing? As you mentioned, it doesn't really change much for them, but does it further move the pieces of those who have resurrected from these formations and how they'll continue trying to carve up the Sudan in their pursuit of power?
Well, the fact is that Sudan is dismantling as a country as we know it. So it will never be the same again in terms of its unity and the Sudanese people feeling like one people. So that is a fact. But in the immediate sense, the people in Darfur, in Al Fasher, in Al Janeina, in people in Kordofan who are still under serious assault are undoubtedly euphoric in terms of one mass murderer has been arrested, tried, and found guilty. There is no question that one guilty man is obviously not going to solve the problems of Sudan, but at least it is one step to assure the people of Sudan that justice may be delayed, but justice often has a long bending arc towards the people that have lost in this history. So I think there is hope that there's hope in Western Sudan that no matter how long it takes, justice will eventually prevail. It may not come in the form of each family feeling vindicated, feeling that they have been acknowledged as victims, nor does anyone think that there can be recompense or compensation or immediate redressing of their needs. But in the whole, I think the people of Western Sudan are euphoric about the verdict, the ICC ruling about this one man, but that the people will hope that this is only one step in the pursuit of all the other men who have done so much evil.
Very briefly, Professor Jok, will that reverberate to the Central African Republic, and how?
Well, that is the idea, that the ICC and its efforts on the African continent have to show people living in dilapidated areas ransacked by civil wars that they too will eventually get their day in court, so that they will be vindicated. So Central African Republic is definitely, which is very close to Darfur and Kordofan. Libya is not so far away. Chad, which is hosting people now who have run away from Al Janina and Fasher and all the rest of the regions of Western Sudan. Chad might also be another place where stories of massacres and targeted killings will be recorded and chronicled, for a possibility of a further pursuit of some of the military men, especially in RSF and in SAF, going forward. So I think this is only a beginning of a possibility, and it is giving hope to people that, yes, it may take long, but eventually these people cannot be allowed to get away with that. Even if they will not be found while alive, eventually, even if they are dead, somebody has to say that it was so and so who carried out these massacres. So that the people who have died in these terrible wars at least can be given.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor. Always good to talk to you, Professor Jok Madut Jok, political analyst, speaking